My watch says it's 7 p.m.
Eastern European time.
So it must be 9
9
a.m. there in
time.
Ashland. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We won't be sharing a slide for just a little while. We do want to do some introductions. So this is a virtual tour of the Balkans. I'm Jan McCoy.
Amy McCoy.
And we live in Plovdiv, Bulgaria. We adopted our daughter from Bulgaria in March of 2004, and that set off what ended up being a relocation to Plovdiv 21 years later. That's the first question everyone in Bulgaria asks us is, why are two Americans living in Plovdiv? So we're very prepared to offer that information.
Between when we initially began the documentation to adopt our daughter and before completely moving here, we made about 12 visits to Bulgaria, but that included many trips within the Balkans. And then in March of 2025, so just over a year ago, we left Ashland and we moved here to Plovdiv, Bulgaria, which you will learn much more about in the third of our 3 sessions.
Yeah, we will be.
We want to move back. We're on slides now. Hold on just a minute.
They're not seeing that here.
Yes.
So we've organized the class in 3 stages. It's 3 one-hour sessions. The first session is the Balkans, not including Bulgaria. And then we'll do a full session on just Bulgaria, which is where we have most of our photos. And we were actually quite shocked to find out how many photos we have of Bulgaria. And then we'll narrow it even further to just Plovdiv, which is where we live. I'll tell you the impetus for this session, this series, was that we did a couple of classes in the fall where we talked about how to relocate outside the US and then what our experience has been in that relocation. And we had some slideshows that we stuck in just kind of as fill in case we ran short. And indeed, we ran long, and people were very concerned at the loss of the pictures. And everybody suggested, well, not everybody, but many people suggested that they might be interested in seeing a slideshow of what it was we were experiencing. So that's why we decided to offer this. And apparently it has some appeal. We currently have 44 participants, counting ourselves twice. So 42 of you. And there are 55 registrants. So we actually were quite shocked at how appealing this must be.
We want to begin sharing this. We're not sharing the screen.
Now we do.
Okay.
So we're going to share with you as soon as I can figure out which screen I want.
Yeah.
No. That one. There we go. We actually, it would shock you to see what we're up against here. We have the iPad that we're using as a second screen to our first screen that is the Zoom meeting on a laptop. And then we have a second laptop that we're watching to see what you're seeing so that we don't get confused as to what it is you're seeing. So, as I said, that we're going to talk about the Balkans, we're going to talk about Bulgaria, and then we're going to talk about Plovdiv each of the 3 weeks. Only one driver, and this is just like being in the car. So we are recording this. We'll email you when the recording is ready. We won't email you the recording, but rather a link to it. I like to trim off. It recorded all the lead in where we were not doing much. It will take out the fact that I just said, but not the second one, I hope, because that would sound weird. Anyway, we'll clean the presentation up so it's a little more pleasant to watch in recording. We will set up the download for the PowerPoints. They can't go on the Moodle, but we can put them into a Google Share. And through that share, we can give you a link on the Moodle. And as I hinted, we are providing resources via the Moodle. You'll want to figure out how to get in there, but please don't contact me or Amy to get that information. You're going to need to go through the tech support that the Ollie offers. They're much quicker and better at doing that. And we frankly have no more experience with it than you, except that we've used it in one previous class. So if you're having trouble getting the Moodle, you'll want to go to Ollie's assistance.
So about using the Moodle, here's the location, radar.moodle.sou.edu. There's the format for login, your first name dot last name, and the password is the same for everybody. So you can access it there. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really is fairly easy to use if you go to that website. I will tell you, you can change your your username once you've logged in the first time. I used it all of last fall and then realized anybody who knew who I was could have been getting in there to change what was on the Moodle. And so I changed it this spring.
So what we will be, oh, no, what is on the Moodle? We will put up, besides the PowerPoint files, links to the PowerPoints that we will present. There will be 3 PowerPoints. We'll have the PDFs of the PowerPoints as well. So if you would rather have them in more of a document form, that's available for you. Also, just noting, there are notes on each of these slides that we're going to see, because we frankly don't remember absolutely everything we visited, just out of memory. So we have notes about location, name of the location, etc., name of the castle, fortress, etc. So if you're really interested in the history behind this, there will be notes on that as well.
All righty.
One thing that we want to be really clear about, if during this session you have questions and you want to ask questions, please jump into chat, send them to everybody. That way we can both see them, because otherwise only he can see it logged in as the host. But if you send them to everyone, I can get to them, and I'm monitoring chat for that purpose. So,
all right.
We'll jump in now.
Yeah. So first, where are the Balkans? The Balkans are this peninsula. When we first tell everybody or anybody we have moved to Bulgaria, their question is, where's Bulgaria? So we've decided we should let people know Bulgaria is just above Greece. It's next to North Macedonia. This just says Macedonia. The Greeks would be very upset about this map. It does include a very small portion of Turkey, but we won't be talking about Turkey, even though we visited there, partly because there's just too much to say about Turkey, and partly because the Turks don't even consider themselves Balkan, so they won't be particularly upset about that. It does include all of what was the former Yugoslavia, and it also includes Romania, and sometimes, but not always, Moldova. Depends on who you're speaking with. But you can see that this is something of a peninsula. It's not quite as tight a peninsula as Florida or even Italy, which you see just across the Adriatic Sea. So it's not as distinguished as some of the peninsulas you might expect. So, but those are the countries we'll be talking about. A couple of them we haven't visited, including Kosovo, for instance. We don't have any photos there, so we won't be talking much about it. One of the things you often get, and we want to address this right up front, is if I were to come to visit the Balkans, is it a safe space? Is it a place that's good to be in? And we actually have been thinking about this quite a bit lately, and having conversations with others, not conversations we initiate, but some spontaneous conversations that have been initiated by others as well, about how comfortable it is to walk here. On Wednesday evenings, we go across town to, what is it? Maybe a mile, a little less, to a cafe, and we meet with others who get together to speak English and to just build relationships, and then walk back home between 10 and 11:30, depends on the Wednesday. And we have never felt the least bit uncomfortable with that. And the same is true of all the places we've visited throughout the Balkans. It just feels safe.
Very, very high personal safety rating. In fact, for the 3rd class that we have together, Jan is actually going to be in Oregon for that class. I'll be here alone, and well, not alone, but here in Bulgaria by myself. And I'm planning on going out and doing things. I have no problem going out and having dinner with a friend, coming back, walking through the center of this town by myself. So personal safety is very comforting and comfortable for me as a woman as well.
Well, and the other aspect of personal safety I want to address is that people ask, do you feel welcome there? Not just do you feel safe, safe from muggings, that sort of thing, but do you feel welcome, that you should be there? Absolutely true. The only question anybody ever asks about being in Bulgaria is, why on earth would an American move to Bulgaria? It's never, why are you here? It's always, but why are you here? So it's just a curiosity. We do want to point out that there are other aspects of safety beyond just personal safety, and that is it safe to be in this part of the world? We've actually had some people say, but isn't Bulgaria in the Middle East? No, it's not. It's in Europe. And indeed, it is a member of the European Union. And as you can see from this map, so are several other of the countries about. And separately, it's also a member of NATO, which in fact is a little bit risky right now. The US has some F-16s that are flying around here in Bulgaria, but they're technically Bulgarian airplanes that are being sold to Bulgaria from the US. So that's why they're here. They're here to teach Bulgarians how to fly them.
So on a larger map, here's Europe in general with, the rest of the Middle East and North Africa. We've highlighted the Balkans specifically. We're going to overlay, courtesy of a really cool web app called The True Size Of. We're going to overlay Oregon, just so you get perspective on how big of a place this is. Actually, Oregon is closer in size. I think it's 4% different than Romania. So it is... We're not talking gigantic spaces here.
Yeah, it's half again as large as Bulgaria, just the state of Oregon. And by the way, if you're interested, The True Size Of has a link on the Moodle, because I thought some people might be interested in this. It's a cool deal because you can find a country and drag that country or state on top of another, and it adjusts the size as you move it around on the map, because there's always distortion on a map. Well, this eliminates the distortion difference between any two countries. Pretty cool deal.
So the size of the Balkans, roughly the size of Texas. So there's hopefully some perspective.
All of the countries in the Balkans.
So a little bit about what we're talking about here today. There is a lot of ancient archaeology here. We have traces of the Illyrians in the western part of the Balkans. We have the Thracians in the east and kind of in the south where we are. Go ahead.
The Thracians were active before and during the time of what you would call or consider ancient Greece. And they were somewhat displaced or overthrown by the Romans when the Romans arrived about 100 AD to this area. So the whole area was part of the Roman Empire. In fact, that's why it's called Romania, because the Romans had control of most of what is now Romania. And that was but about 100 years after Christ.
After that, we have the Byzantine and the Ottoman influences, which we live with Roman. We actually live here in Bulgaria with a lot of Thracian, Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman influences in architecture, in cuisine, in so much that we experience here all the time.
Yeah.
And then more modern era, some wars. You might remember the breakup of Yugoslavia. We had the first Balkan Wars in the early part of the 1900s.
We're not suggesting anyone remembers the 1912-13 Balkan War.
Slav Wars in 1991 through 2001.
And those radically reshaped the interactions, if not the borders in this area.
So what we're going to show you, and maybe you already know because you've already visited, but many different kinds of languages, multiple religions, very different cultural legacies throughout the Balkans. And we're going to hit on, I'd say, at least 3/4 of the Balkan countries in the next 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So
I will tell you, we haven't spent a lot of time in some of these countries, and therefore we don't have a lot of photos. Indeed, I drove through one of them, and I can't recall which one it is, without taking a single photo because it only took us. Yeah, Montenegro. I had a bad time in Montenegro because of some interest from the border police. So we fairly quickly moved through Montenegro without taking any photos, but it was still a very pretty place. So we're going to start with Croatia, though.
And here we are. Croatia has the benefit of an amazing coastline, if anything, to the detriment of Bosnia and Herzegovina, but an amazing coastline. So there it is for perspective. So here is one of the really beautiful bridges. It's called the Pelšac Bridge in Croatia, one of the many beautiful bridges there.
This is crossing a river. It is a big bay right there, but it's the river that the bridge is crossing.
Jan then spent a few days, or at least a full day, in Zadar, Croatia, and you can walk through these.
Sure. This is just a street scene from the city. You can see as we go through, you're going to see that there are an awful lot of stone streets. That's not universal, and certainly not, it's not even truly typical, but it's the part of the cities we're interested in, and therefore that's what we have photos of. We just don't take pictures of asphalt streets much. So, but they exist here, certainly.
This is the Church of St. Chrysogonus. It was built in the 12th century. And just for perspective, Croatia is a Roman Catholic country. So this is a Roman Catholic church.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mentioned the Wednesday evening Let's Get Together that we attend most Wednesdays. This last couple of times, there's been a French woman who's traveling through, and she asked, well, how do Americans feel about seeing these old things that you can see in this part of Europe? And we just told her it is a shock to us. We can't speak for all Americans by any means, but this is a 12th century church.
And this is not very old compared to what we're going to show you.
Yes, things will age as we go through these presentations. This is the Church of St. Donatus, also in Zadar. It's also a Catholic church. The tower over here was built a couple of hundred years after this was built. I mean, these are living things. They're not ruins or anything like that. They're certainly not abandoned artifacts. This is the world that people are living in.
And here we are in Zagreb. And I'll tell you, for the 2 days that we were in Zagreb, Jan had a really, really bad cold. So he missed most of this. This isn't the holiday season, actually, December of 2021, just before they moved to the Euro on January 1st, 2022. But this is the main square. The name of the main square is Ban Jelisic Square. So here's some beautiful buildings from around the main square.
And interestingly to us, and we tracked this before deciding to move to Bulgaria, the weather lines up pretty closely with what we saw in Oregon. So it's raining here, it's Christmas time. It rains here at Christmas, as it does in Southern Oregon. But the temperature is always within about 5 or 10 degrees for highs to what it is in the Ashland area.
Another picture, same square, showing transit, for example, pretty integrated. These are walkable cities. These are not really great cities for driving cars in.
No, they're really great cities to not drive cars in.
Here is the Zagreb Cathedral, officially known as the Cathedral of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Another beautiful church. And we've got this is known as the Holy Mary column. And the next slide zooms in a little bit on these beautiful angels.
Yeah, and that's gold. They didn't spray paint that.
No. This is a statue of St. George slaying the dragon. You can see the serpent at his feet right there.
You can see St. George pretty much anywhere you want to look in this area. St. George is a very noted character.
I really like this building. This is the art pavilion near downtown Zagreb. And just the beautiful architecture, the details on this, like kind of a conservatory in a way.
Yeah, I thought to zoom in, to show you, that's a glass roof.
Yeah.
Quite impressive one.
Pretty cool. There's a funicular. Oddly, I did not know this word until we really started traveling to Europe, but there is a way to get up and down from Old Town, the upper part of Old Town Zagreb, to the lower part of Old Town Zagreb. And here is a photo of that.
Yep.
Another
just the streets. You'll notice there are no cars in this photo. Those are people walking.
Yeah.
Very typical that you would find, pardon me, you would find pedestrian malls where there's not a chance to drive.
Yeah. We came across a very large fruit and vegetable market. And here are just some scenes from that. Beautiful fruits. And these are most likely from Croatia, somewhere in Croatia, not too far removed, and pretty reasonably priced, actually.
As I said, we aren't going to talk much about Turkey, but in Turkey, they have lots and lots of greenhouses where they grow all this fruit and vegetable as well. So some things are available out of season here in the Balkans because of the work they're doing in Turkey.
The flower market, again, they were preparing for Christmas time, so they had a lot of really nice festive wreaths and things. One of the things Jan missed was a pretty cool 80s museum. So think communism. It recreated an apartment in Zagreb, which is the capital of Croatia, in the 80s during communism. So here are some of the furnishings that you might find in 1980 Zagreb.
And I particularly was interested in this. I didn't see it. This is all I've seen of it is this photo. But you can notice that the keyboard there is standard QWERTY keyboard, as though they were typing in English. It's got English on the side of the keyboard there, but it also has all of the colors in German.
Yes.
So it's a little bit of an interesting mix.
Probably East German, I'm figuring.
It's not just a keyboard, it's a computer. There's a disk drive in the side there and all. So it's a full-fledged computer. Anyway.
And a phone. So some fun stuff from
clearly
that.
Pretty stylish.
Yeah, fun stuff from that place. We move on to St. Mark's Cathedral, built in the early 13th century in Zagreb. And you can see that there are some coat of arms on the left. I didn't get all of it very clear, but the coat of arms on the left include Croatia, Dalmatia, and Slavonia. And then on the right is the coat of arms for Zagreb itself. Some kind of cool graffiti we saw.
Interestingly, here you'll find quite a mix of somebody with a paint can and somebody else with great artistic skill.
Yeah.
Mixed together. It's very common throughout the Balkans.
Some more street scenes that I thought would be interesting. Some really beautiful architecture. And what you'll find throughout at least tonight's presentation, it is very beautiful, I'd say almost Western European styled architecture. So, and it's Eastern. I mean, we're in Eastern Europe, so it's all the way.
Yeah. We do have one question. Somebody's asking, are there a lot of earthquakes here? Actually, there are, but they're very mild earthquakes. This is not the San Andreas region, for instance. Greece has more earthquakes and there's some volcanic activity down into the Mediterranean, but they're usually very mild. The cracks are just aging for the most part.
There have been some there. And I will also say that in some places, and you'll see that we'll show you very pointedly in a future presentation. These are some of the effects of war.
Yes.
And they've left them very purposely.
Yeah, it's common throughout what is now, or what used to be Yugoslavia, to see that they've left behind scars very deliberately.
Very intentional. Go back for a second.
Well, this is the same.
So this is a stone gate, and it's the last remaining gate of the four that provided access to the medieval city. And inside the stone gate is a chapel dedicated to Our Lady of the Stone Gate. Happens to be the patron saint of Zagreb. The shrine there withstood a fire in 1731. A specific 17th century painting of the Virgin Mary. And because that was the only thing that remained from this fire, this has become a very special shrine. And in fact, I was kind of surprised we came upon it in a very dark, go ahead, you can go forward, very dark little alcove. So here we have some candles being lit in remembrance of those who've passed.
Yeah, candles are a big part of both Catholicism and Eastern Orthodox. We see them in all of those churches. It's very common there.
This happens to be a Greek Orthodox church in Zagreb. I just like the mosaics, so I took a picture of that.
Themselves very common, by the way. Mosaics are very common here.
And here's a picture of the skyline. You'll see the cathedral in the tallest two spires. And then in the front with the gold with fissures, as you noted, is St. Mary's Church, another Catholic church. Before we get to Serbia, I want to answer a question. Slovenia was not colored on the map. Do you not consider it part of the Balkans? No. In fact, we've done a lot of research on who considers themselves Balkan, and Slovenia, Slovakia, those two have never included themselves in. So on to Serbia.
And that's interesting. You're paying that much attention. We're pleased.
Yeah.
So this is Serbia. How do we decide? Is this Alpha? No, it's not an Alpha order.
Going north.
Yes, we're going north to south. That's what we decided on. So Serbia is the largest of the former Yugoslav republics, and it's pretty dominant among the governments of that area.
And I'll tell you, there are two surprises tonight. We're going to share our surprises visiting these places. This church was the surprise. Very unassuming on the outside. We're moving into, this is in Belgrade. This is the capital city. We are in an Eastern Orthodox country here. So
Yugoslavia must have been a real challenge to hold together.
Yeah,
because they are
religions.
Lots of different religions, lots of cultural differentiation. It must have been a challenge.
So this is Saint Sava Church, a Church of Saint Sava in Belgrade. Some beautiful exterior work done. It was opened in 1935, so kind of a newbie on the scene of churches in the Balkans.
That's pretty new.
Yeah.
But you can see the images of the people, the icons there, are mosaics. They're not painted. They're little chunks of stone and in fact, gold leaf.
And then we get inside. And Jan and I were blown away at this place. This is an amazing cathedral. As we said, it's newish. They're still working on it. We approach this architecturally and artistically. We're not looking at this from a religious point of view, but there's amazing beauty. It's hard to see the detail on this, but those are mosaics. We'll get in. We have a few more photos of this. What I loved about this, what we're looking at is a large chandelier, a metal chandelier, and they have used the metal work to write passages. My neck couldn't hold up my phone that much to try to translate what that was, but I believe these are biblical passages in the metalwork. And it was really a beautiful location.
It's all written in the Cyrillic alphabet, by the way. Is why you're seeing unfamiliar characters.
And then some other scenes nearby inside the church itself. We're gonna
let me zoom in.
The next one.
The next one. Yeah.
Here we go. Here's a picture up close of what dozens, if not more, artisans and mosaic artists have put together in this building.
And this is the way every image you've seen inside this building was created.
In place. They didn't build it elsewhere. They put it together here.
But the whole ceiling, we've not been to Italy to see the Sistine Chapel. We don't know. Maybe it's tremendously more impressive. If it is, we are going to be shocked.
Yeah. So pretty glorious. This happens to be down in the
Go back one.
basement. I don't know what that's called.
I don't know.
The bottom floor. And this happens to be paint. They were just finishing this up when we got there, but you can see there's an iconostasis, and behind it you will see different martyrs and saints with the gold leaf halos on them. So pretty amazing place.
One of the things that's a bit of a shock to this is that they have it lighted. Most of the churches we go into, most of the cathedrals aren't well lighted. They're literally still lit with candles, and it can be hard to get a good shot. But this one, they are proud of. It's clear. And here we are out in the street in Belgrade. The infrastructure here can be somewhat dated. That's a trolley that's probably from at the newest, maybe in the 70s, but could be as old as the 50s, and wouldn't be surprised to me. That's not atypical. The trains, this is a comparison, the trains here in Bulgaria, they're upgrading. They're going from the 1950s rolling stock to used German 1980s rolling stock for the actual railways. So
here's another street scene in Belgrade. Again, late, I'd say turn of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Architecture primarily.
And you'll notice this actually is an asphalt street.
Yeah.
We do sometimes get stuck with asphalt streets, but
yet another pedestrian walkway, which are most of the major cities in the Balkans have pedestrian walkways.
Just some old architecture we found interesting. This is very typical of these areas.
Here's an interesting building. This says Misha Anastasovich to his fatherland. So somebody built the building. I don't know what it was used for, what it is in use for today, but built it to his fatherland, Serbia.
Yeah, and you'll notice that like the scallops on the roof, the statues inset, it's just amazing what they're still doing with architecture. And these are not a long time ago.
There's a national museum, for example, in Belgrade. Just some more shots of some beautiful buildings.
Sorry.
And then we're actually above clearly the river, but this is where the Sava River flows into the Danube in Belgrade. And I'd like to go back in summer.
Yes, they're pretty, those are big rivers.
Yeah.
So this is part of an old fortress in Zagreb. They're all of the major cities have in their past a fortress, and most of them are still somewhat intact and visitable. This particular one is a military museum.
Yeah.
So it has military equipment from World War I through the Balkan Wars and up to and including the Balkan War in the 1990s. We did stop, I think this is where it was. We saw a flight suit they were very proud of. It was an American flight suit from the only airplane they shot down during the Balkan War.
On display in that museum. And that's the Kalmedigan Fortress. And it is anywhere in Belgrade, you're going to, along the river, you'll see this. But on to an evening in a very small restaurant. There's our friend Patrick, kind of staring off to the right there, but just a wandering little band came in and decided to play some really folksy Balkan music for us, some Serbian music while we ate.
And there's not a city in the Balkans you can't find at least one restaurant like this where they have a band that goes through looking for tips.
Yeah.
But
it was nice.
In some of the cities, they're very common.
This is along Skadarlija Street in Belgrade, another kind of a tourist area, but it's an old town area, and they focused on they've done it up. For example, I found this very sweet. This is advertising the Bohem Bar and Hotel. I thought that was a really sweet little Yugoslavian car, Zavista.
Yeah.
Zastava. Yeah. Jan and I came across this sign. It's up on a billboard. It says in Serbian "Zajedno," which means together. And what's kind of shocking here is that on the left side of this, you see a white, blue, and red flag. That's the Russian flag. And then if you turn it upside down, it flows into the Serbian flag. This is advertising the Gazprom, the Russian oil and gas company, about Russian-Serbian relations.
Yeah, Serbia has a much tighter relationship with Russia than most of the area countries. Certainly than Bulgaria does.
So next we move on to Novi Sad, Serbia. We spent a day there around primarily another square. You'll see it's Christmas time. They had a little Christmas market set up. Again, beautiful architecture. The breakfast room at the hotel, at the little bed and breakfast we stayed at, Balkan breakfasts never disappoint. There is always so much food and fresh juices to share as well. Another building from the central square, I got it in the daytime and then I got it at night. And this city, Novi Sad, did a great job of lighting their buildings in the evening. They really did a great job.
Once again, a pedestrian walkway. These are just almost universal in cities of any size, 20,000 or more. You're going to find a pedestrian walk that includes mostly retail.
Architecture. This is this is a Catholic church. This is the name of.
I'm sorry,
yeah, I forgot that one.
I destroyed the excitement.
Catholic church in Novi Sad during the day, and then lit at night. And then we have a few shots inside showing some beautiful stained glass windows as well.
Yeah.
And they're really known for this Petrovardian fortress, which wasn't this built during the...
Yeah, this is an interesting fortress. We think of fortresses being Middle Ages, typically 12 to 1500. This particular one was under construction during the American Revolution in 1776. So this was not something they were abandoning or that was only used for a short time. There are years and years and years of fortress building history here. And this particular one is very nearly intact. It's well worth a visit. Unfortunately, we don't have many photos of it. This is a photo from it.
Ask it. Ask it.
Our dog has decided she's very thirsty, so.
Go lay down. Not now. Okay. View of the Danube.
Yeah, so this is the Danube River, which runs all the way through the Balkan Peninsula. This is the Yellow Submarine, which isn't at all a Yellow Submarine. They just decided to celebrate the Yellow Submarine. This is part of the dam, a dam on the Danube where they draw water out, but we thought it was cute.
And then some love locks, lots of places with locks, adding so much weight, of course. But anyway, just a view over the city of Novi Sad.
Once again, Novi Sad from the top. You'll notice there's snow. We don't like that.
It was kind of cool. Some more from the fortress. And then some shots from downtown. This is St. George's Cathedral in Novi Sad.
The same St. George we talked about earlier with the dragons.
Yeah. And a street mural showing what this looked like previously.
Yeah, I'm deciding I'm going to push it a little bit faster because Amy talks and we are still in Serbia.
Niš, Serbia. I will tell you, we only have a few photos from Niš. We spent a full day at a concentration camp there. I did not include those photos. So just wanted to be clear. I wanted to show you some street scenes from Niš. Pretty sweet little restaurants. I think we ate at that little place. Yeah. This is kind of interesting. This is a monument for the air battle over Niš. It was an engagement between American and Soviet troops, November 7, 1944. It was documented as friendly fire. So there was something accidental over Niš at the time in 1944. And then a couple of shots of the Danube. We happen to be in Romania looking at Serbia.
It's getting big by this time. And it has a long way to go to get to the Black Sea. And now Romania. This is Romania, the largest of the countries in the area. They have a Romance language there. Unlike the rest of the Balkans are pretty much Slavic languages with the exception of Greece, which has its own language. Romanians, if you don't know the language, sound like they're speaking Spanish.
Spanish or Italian.
Yeah.
Here is an Orthodox church in downtown Bucharest.
You can see some of these churches get quite large.
Some more typical street scenes, some architecture I wanted to point out here. Again, some beautiful architecture. Those
are just what you've seen in the streets of Oregon with let's be inside because we need to be outside. Yeah. It's just the ornate architecture is just striking to us.
It is.
Once again, another conservatory it's all glass on the top roof there.
Some more detail, kind of zoomed in detail. And then here we are walking along the river Damovica. That's hard for me. Well, Bulgarian is hard.
Yeah, we don't speak Bulgarian.
This is hard. It flows through central Bucharest. I thought that was a really nice scene. This happens to be a local police administration headquarters. This is one building. On the left side that you can't see is a matching building. And pretty stunning in size. But wait, it gets bigger. And I have to say that because we're going to see something else. We were there in November a couple of years ago. It was a beautiful day, beautiful fall day in Bucharest. And here's a nice little walkway. So here is the Palace of the Parliament in Bucharest. If you recall, Ceausescu was the ruler during communist days in Romania and had a very traumatic and dramatic ending of his life. But here is the Palace of Parliament that he had constructed. A little bit of specs on this building.
Yeah, let's make it clear. It's not the building he had constructed. It's a building that he had some other people construct. He didn't do it himself.
A little bit about the building, just to give it some perspective. What you see is 276 feet high. Underground is another 302 feet of building. Floor, I needed that slide.
Why?
Because that's where the data is.
Oh, they're reading the notes. Okay, I'm sorry. We're giving away the fact that when you see the PowerPoint, you'll have these notes.
Square footage, 3.9 million square feet. It weighs probably one of the heaviest buildings in the world. It weighs just over 9 billion pounds. You're going to see why it weighs so much. I actually just thought, oh, it's another office building. But this became one of the besides St. Sava, the building, the church in Serbia, this was a surprise for us that this is a stunning building. So it began in 84, completed in 94, 97.
Still outside. Now we're inside. Note the marble.
And
everywhere.
And everything in this building is from Romania. The carpeting was made by artisans in Romania. Everything was chiseled and came from Romania. Beautiful ceilings, beautiful artwork.
A conference room.
Yeah, we're going to come back to this one. The woodwork. Here's a quick little funny story.
The staircase you see has an opposite staircase as well. Ceausescu was about 4 inches shorter than his wife, and he had these built so that he looked taller on his staircase as they came down opposite each other. I think he might have had an ego issue. But that's just speculation on my part. What do I know? Carved doors. I mean, the carving on this is just amazing, the work that they did in these buildings. This is one of the parliament meeting spaces. That's these doors are actually pocket doors, so you can, if you close the panels, then you can slide them back into the wall, so it becomes a large arched opening. You can see it's split even on the overside. The arch on the top, that whole thing slides into the panels into the walls on the side.
The workmanship on this is beyond compare. And again, I know I have not seen a lot of other. I have limited experience, but the work on this building was amazing. And the tile, here's some beautiful rugs, pink marble, more marble. This was a very important reception room where the Ceausescus would receive foreign dignitaries. And I will point out, get the little label, get the little pointer right over here. Okay, we're just pointing right here. You see where there's kind of a notch in the desk right there where it's cut out? That's where he sat. That's where Ceausescu sat, and that was his chair. So he was in charge from there.
So you can tell we were pretty impressed by this building.
Yes, the building is used today. It is still for the parliament and legislative work.
Yeah, you can only visit like a quarter of the building, even less than that.
Yeah, it's very small. You can't, it's mainly on one floor that you see.
Yes. So we're on to Albania now. We won't spend much time in Albania because we didn't spend much time in Albania. But you can see Albania is just north of Greece, so right along the Adriatic. This is a square in Albania, and it's kind of interesting. They don't speak English there, but it does say Old Town quite clearly in English. That's because this is a touristy area. It is not built for tourists. It has been adjusted to accommodate tourists.
This is Gjirokastër, Albania. Some beautiful scenery.
You can see that's a Muslim mosque. Albania is a Muslim country, and there are mosques and their accompanying minarets everywhere throughout the country. It's also common to find very hilly cities here because the cities were built on the hills because they're easier to defend. And it led to some very interesting architecture where you walk in on the fifth floor from one side and walk down to get into the rest of the building, that sort of thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Am I falling off the screen? This is just a panorama of the city just to show you that it's all built on the city, all built on the side of the hill. And then down into the valley, it's just a big plain. That's agricultural area. And as I said, every place you go, there's a fortress. And this one was impressive.
Castle of Gjirokastër from the 12th century. Some more dramatic.
Yeah, an open square, just some open space, and the city and the city. These are big towns. But the interesting thing to me, one of the things we thought when we were heading for Europe was it's full. We get the impression as Americans that there are an awful lot of people living in Europe, and there are, but there are huge areas of openness and either agricultural space or just left to nature.
This is now, we've moved to Shkodër, Albania, and this is the Rozafa Castle. And this is fortresses, as he said, they kept building on top. It started around the 2nd century BC.
So yeah, you can see this is much older construction than the finer work further up. Yeah, we know time is an issue.
Okay.
We need to move on from Albania
okay.
here pretty soon.
Albania, just some beautiful scenery and a beautiful ending to Albania.
Yeah, no, we're not quite out of Albania. No, North Macedonia.
And it is just due west of Bulgaria. And we spent our time at Lake Ohrid. We're in North Macedonia in this photo. The mountains on the other side are Albania. So
we would recommend Ohrid Lake Lake Ohrid if you're interested in visiting. It's worth a stop.
Quite a beautiful place. There's the beautiful Macedonian happy looking flag.
Yes, doesn't it look cheery and perky? Obviously, they want you to be on their beach. This is all pebbled beach, which is unfortunate, but not terrible.
Yeah.
There are worse beaches.
Swimmable, very swimmable.
Yeah, it's very nice. And the water is just perfectly clear. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Beautiful place. We move on south from Lake Ohrid, or from Ohrid, to a place called Bay of Bones, and it's a living museum. They had folks here 1200 to 700 BC. They built over the water. They expected around 8,000 square meters over water at one point in time, but they rebuilt because time did not prove kind to this architecture. Yeah,
this is all reconstruction. This is not original, but it's all lath and mud construction.
So a few photos from inside there. Oh, keep going.
They haven't caught up yet.
Yeah.
There
we go.
And then we move into Greece. Quite frankly, we haven't done much in Greece yet. We've done the northern part that's in the Balkan Peninsula, but the southern part of Greece claims that it's not part of the Balkan Peninsula. It is ancient Greece. So we haven't visited that part yet, but it isn't part of this. So this is the city of Philippi. It's named after Philip of Macedonia. Philip of Macedonia was the father of Alexander the Great, who went around taking over much of the Eastern Mediterranean and all the way into what is now Iran and Persia. And this was a huge city. This was one of the dominant cities of the era. And it has not been reconstructed, but that makes sense given its age. It's just not in a situation to have that.
View out from Krinides, Greece, which is northern Greece.
Yeah, this actually is right next to Philippi's ruins. Here we wanted to focus on this is a fountain on the far left here, and those are very common that people build fountains to capture spring water. But over here on the right, you'll see this tiny little building, essentially a dollhouse-sized building, but it's a shrine, and they're put on the roadside either to honor somebody in particular, sometimes to honor a spot where somebody has died. There are several reasons that they might put them up, but you see those little buildings a lot in Greece and actually throughout the Balkans, but more so in northern Greece.
This is Ioannina, Greece. Beautiful. There's a bay in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is which ocean? This is or not ocean, but sea. It's not the Adriatic. It's south of the Adriatic. It's
Ionian.
Yeah. It's Ionian Sea. That's right. This is a rare thing in Greece.
It's a mosque.
This is a mosque, and that's not very common in Greece at all. This is more ruins from that area, and also era. So these are ruins of a castle from quite some time ago. This actually, it's interesting. This brickwork is built into an archway in order to shore it up. So this is much more current, although still quite ancient.
And this is where you'll see this in the other presentations we show you. Things are just built around it. Life just happens around the ruins.
Yeah, actually, in Girocaster, we showed you the fortress there earlier. They've just built inside so that you can just live in an apartment inside an ancient fortress. Not ancient, medieval fortress. This is still the same area in Greece.
We then moved on down to Sithonia, which is there are three, it's like a trident shaped peninsula on the far eastern side of Greece. And we happened to vacation on the central peninsula of those. Here's a picture. You can see out in the distance with clouds over it, a mountain kind of on the center left side. We'll see more of that. But Jan and I had a lovely week wandering around in here.
Yeah.
We're not going to show you a lot of amazing vacation photos, but we'll show you some.
We would recommend this as a vacation spot, though.
And
there are so many beautiful little beaches, little tiny beaches.
And it is not crowded like islands can be. So I'll say it that way. Another beautiful scene. And there's the mountain that we're going to end with in just a few minutes. So here's a view from our hotel room, I believe. Some beaches.
Okay.
Beautiful
Just because the
sunsets.
sun was setting.
Yeah. Here's another one of those small little shrines. This happens to be just a very small beach on a very small island. And somebody decided to put up a remembrance for someone. We rented a boat at a nearby harbor near Vurvuru, Greece. And we just trekked all around in the Aegean and stopped at little islands along the way. Got out and swam.
In perfectly clear water. You could count your toes when you look down.
Interestingly, the people from the mainland, this happens to be an island, a small island. People from the mainland will come in the summertime by boat, set up little tents and camps, leave it all summer long. They come on the weekends to hang out, or if they have vacation, they'll come, and nobody bothers them. I mean, nobody goes and raids these camps. So I thought that was kind of cool. Here we are in Uranopoli, Greece. This is, if you're looking at the trident that I mentioned, we had been kind of over here. We're moving up to the center, and we're going to actually travel the length of that peninsula in the next couple of photos.
In just 4 or 5 short minutes.
Yeah. Some nice scenic photos from there.
Here, the beaches are all sand, by the way. They're really
sandy.
Pleasant.
So what that third peninsula is known as, it's Mount Athos. It has over 20 monasteries. They're Orthodox monasteries, and they're amazing.
They represent each a separate country.
Yeah. Huge buildings. All of this area is only men only. No women are allowed on these grounds.
And men only get to be there if they have agreed either to be a monk, which is a big issue, or to do some sort of essential mission work. People can do construction, that sort of thing.
This happens to be Mount Athos. The name of the whole peninsula is named after this mountain. And quite a beautiful one. You can see the winding roads getting down to the water from some of these peninsulas. So, and that is a scene.
And the sun sets on our Balkan tour.
Yes.
We'll be back next week with Bulgaria. And we want to say thank you. And quite a large number of you are with us right now, and we are flattered. As I said in my email, we're flattered that you have any interest at all in what we have to say, and that you stuck with us. And we hope that this has been interesting. We'll see it next week. Maybe that'll help us be a judge. And yes, we'll stop sharing. We're actually quite willing to stick around, but that's the end of the planned program. So if you have questions, and I want to apologize, we missed a question from Nick asking what building, a particular.
No. I did.
Oh, you,
The Palace
you-
of Parliament
Oh,
in
okay.
Bucharest is used for
Okay.
parliamentary legislative purposes. I know Marlon asked, you mentioned a dog. Was it difficult to have a dog there? To answer that question, no. Getting her from Ashland was a little trying and it took a lot, but we got her here. She's a 14-year-old black lab and she's here loving life and living her best Bulgarian life.
The difficulty is traveling as we do, we don't take her along. So we have to find care for her, and Amy has to worry about her. And anytime we're gone,
Yes, I do.
because that's what Amy does.
So we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
You're welcome to come off mute if you have
Yeah.
a question, you just want to ask something.
But I was wondering about religion. There are so many buildings devoted to religion. What about the behavior and attitudes of the people? Are people kind of falling away from formal religion the way they are here? Or are they good, faithful Christians and mostly Christians?
Yeah, since the Muslims moved out in the 1870s, 80s, it is mostly Christian. And as you suggest, people have pretty much fallen away from the religion. There's a great respect for the religion. People are deferential, but there isn't a lot of practice. People don't go to. There's not much attendance at church. Amy, in fact, went to a small town and visited a church during
During a service.
service on a Sunday, just
Yeah.
a typical Sunday.
And a friend and I, a Bulgarian friend and I went in and sat in the back. There were only three elderly ladies in attendance, and they happened to be talking amongst themselves while the priest was giving a sermon of some in Bulgarian. But I'll tell you, in America, we tend to hit churches on, I'll say, the high holidays, right? We go for the big ones. That's kind of what happens here. So
Easter's a very big deal.
Easter is not this Sunday for us here in Orthodox Christianity. It's on the 12th.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a week from Sunday. And it is a very, very big deal. It has a lot of cultural aspects to it. And in fact, next week, timing is perfect. We have some slides about Easter in our presentation. So we'll talk about Easter next week and a little bit about Christmas as well.
When we go into the churches, people are tremendously respectful, but they're not strong church people, but there's a lot of, as I say, a lot of deference to the religion here.
I have a question. Does the food vary very, very much from country to country? And how do you like it?
We love the cuisine. We're
Okay.
very happy with it. It's kind of a mix of Mediterranean cuisine, so lots of tomatoes, cucumbers, that sort of thing, a lot of salads, but also sausages from the north. So you get a lot of we've had conversations with other Americans that it would be very difficult to be vegan here because it's just not anticipated.
Except in summer.
Well, in summer you could make it on your own,
Yeah.
but it would be very difficult even to eat in restaurants. And people kind of look at you oddly if you're vegan.
And I'll say it's the Mediterranean Turkish mix here. So we have kufta, kebabs, we have some amazing potato dishes, which seem kind of more Northern European, German, Czech. Great food, great bread, really good bread.
Well, and the one thing we have seen universally in videos from Americans who visited and among our friends is the produce is unbelievable.
Yeah.
They don't make tomatoes to pick with a machine, for instance.
It tastes like a real tomato.
Yes, it's you're going back 25 years in America to get the same quality of produce. That does mean, of course, that you've got to be careful about picking out a tomato because it might well be squished in your hand if you're not careful picking it up because they age. It's things are not handled in the way they are in the U.S. for preservation, unfortunately. But the produce is phenomenal. It's hard to find beef if you're really a beefsteak eater.
Yeah.
Not a good choice for you. If you're into sausages, pork, and a lot of lamb, and some other more exotic things.
And a lot of chicken.
Yeah, a lot of chicken. But you can easily find duck or goose on menus.
Horse.
Yeah, you can find horse pretty easily. We find it on the menu, never on our plate. But the food's been, we find the variety pretty good. And if you go to someplace like Sofia, I mean, we have found really good Mexican food in Sofia.
Yeah.
You can find Indian food in most of the cities. So the cuisines of various cultures are also represented here.
You mentioned it's difficult to be vegan. What about vegetarian?
That would be an easier thing, but it's still, you'd have to be quite selective. And I think you'd face a fairly narrow menu in restaurants. We can get fresh fruit throughout the year, or fresh produce throughout the year, so that's not a challenge. And certainly, I mean, we have grocery stores here, so if you're looking for frozen vegetables or whatever, those are certainly available.
And the eggs are amazing. Very, very fresh eggs here, even from grocery stores, small grocery stores. Lots of dairy products, again, very fresh. And of course, Bulgaria is known for its yogurt.
It's known for having invented yogurt.
Yeah, and so it's very big on dairy.
Yeah. The eggs, by the way, are usually sold unrefrigerated, and they have feathers stuck to them, that sort of thing. They don't wash the eggs as they do in the US.
Right.
Oh, I have a question. You have talked a lot about architecture, which is near and dear to my soul, having lived in Europe. And I was last in that part of the world in 1975 when it was all communist. I'm wondering, I heard you talk about being with an American friend, going to church with a Bulgarian friend. That's not an easy boundary to cross. And I wondered if you, in future presentations, would talk about what the chances are from slim to none to greater of having some connection as you're buying food, as you're in a cafe, of having a sense of who is there, because I'm not an organized tour kind of person, but I bump along, and sometimes it's sign language only, and sometimes it goes beyond that, because I can speak a few languages, but none that are spoken there.
We'll talk more about that when we get to the Plovdiv presentation, but we certainly can address the point. We shop in Bulgarian, but that doesn't take much. I mean, you walk in, you say hello, you listen for what they tell you for a final cost. You listen for what's the final cost is, but we can't understand them because they say the numbers differently than they're supposed to, and they say them quickly. So we look at the register, but there are places in our neighborhood we shop all the time. And then this is typical. There are very, very many neighborhood shops. Like we go to one store for all of our cleaning products.
And honey.
And it happens her father raises bees, so he's got honey.
He always has our
But
honey.
she knows us. She always greets us, and we chat as much as we can in Bulgarian. When it gets tough, she brings out her 8-year-old son who speaks impeccable English. But he's usually sitting in the back playing video games. But so there are ways to work around. English is very common throughout the Balkans. Yeah. When the Soviet Union started to break up, and then we had the Yugoslav war that broke up the Balkan countries, everybody abandoned Russian for English. So anybody who's 55 or older largely speaks Bulgarian or Albanian or whatever, and Russian. But anybody younger than that, mostly it's English as a second language.
And I decided we're going to Italy in September, and I decided to look at what's English fluency in some of the different countries. Actually, Bulgarian fluency in English is a higher percentage than Italy. So I'm kind of surprised. And we've got folks who we're in twice weekly Bulgarian language classes with a woman who has become our best friend forever. She's a lovely Bulgarian woman.
Who's 35. She's half our age.
Yeah.
And yet we had lunch with her today,
And we try our Bulgarian. And as soon as we get going down the road a little bit, they know English, and they'll move to English. And it's as much, I think, to practice their English as it is just to try to, get through the interaction that we might have. But we'd be happy to talk more about it.
It's not just conversations like in shops. There's a small shop that sells dog food and other pet supplies. I bumped into that woman out in front of her shop today. She was very pleasant and greeted me and all. We can't have a conversation, but I can ask for dog food. And but she's just so welcoming. We really work the neighborhood rather than, you can go to places that are huge. We'll have photos and when we get to Plovdiv of a place that is not at all different from Home Depot. So
looks like out Medford, Crater Lake Avenue.
Yeah, it's just a big retail store. But we don't shop there. We shop local to our neighborhood because we wanted to make those relationships. And by the way, your question is important to us. That might have been evident in our response. We didn't move here to get to know Americans. We know a lot of those.
No, we only know one here.
No, I mean in the world.
Yeah.
We don't know so many in Bulgaria, but we know a lot in the world. Any other questions we might be able to address? Any other comments that you want to offer?
Don't drink. Hold on.
She's not talking to me there. That was the dog.
That was the dog.
I can have a drink if I want. I'm not as noisy as the dog is.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're certainly welcome.
And we will see you next Friday morning, 9 a.m. Our focus will be on Bulgaria. It is very near and dear to our hearts. So,
yeah. And wait till you hear us talk about Plovdiv.
Yeah.
It will be so amazing to us how excited we are. So thank you very much for holding on too. We really appreciate it.
And for those of you who celebrate Easter, I hope everyone has a good Easter.
And thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.